My hands were shaking as I held the termination letter. 24 years, gone in 60 seconds. But what my new boss didn't know, what none of them knew, was that I'd been planning for this moment for exactly 3 years, 2 months, and 17 days. And the weapon I was holding, it wasn't anger. It wasn't tears. It was a single paragraph buried in every contract I'd ever signed. A paragraph their lawyers never bothered to read. The boardroom smelled like expensive leather and cheaper cologne. I stood there watching Marcus Wellington III casually scroll through his phone, specifically his Rolex catalog, while HR prepared my execution. The audacity of this man. 32 years old, trust fund baby, never worked a real day in his life, and now he owned the company I'd built from nothing. Well, not literally nothing. But when I started at Meridian Solutions 24 years ago, we had 6 employees and operated out of a renovated garage. Now, 47 offices worldwide, 800 million in annual revenue, and every single platinum-level client, mine. Ms. Rivera, Marcus said without looking up from his rose-gold Submariner comparison, let's make this quick. I have a tea time at 3. I'd been standing for 12 minutes. They hadn't offered me a seat. If you think Marcus deserves what's coming to him, don't hit that subscribe button just yet. If you think I'm the villain in this story, definitely don't subscribe. Let's see where your loyalties lie by the end. Jennifer from HR cleared her throat. She'd been my friend once. We'd gone to each other's kids' graduations. Now she couldn't meet my eyes. Sophia, as you know, Meridian Solutions has undergone new ownership. Mr. Wellington has decided to restructure the senior management team. Effective immediately, your position as Senior Vice President of Client Relations has been terminated. I nodded slowly. I see, and my severance package. Marcus finally looked up, a smirk playing at his lips. 2 weeks for every year of service. Standard, generous actually. My lawyers said we could argue for less since you're technically an at-will employee. 48 weeks. For 24 years of 70-hour work weeks. For building relationships that brought in 60% of company revenue. For training every junior associate who'd ever walked through those doors. However, Marcus continued, setting down his phone, before you leave, there's the small matter of client transitions. I need you to transfer all your client contracts to corporate control. Today, along with passwords, contact protocols, and any proprietary relationship management strategies. The room fell silent. Outside, the Chicago skyline glittered in the autumn sun. I'd negotiated deals in 17 countries. I'd saved this company from bankruptcy twice. I'd made men like Marcus's father wealthy beyond imagination. And now this child wanted me to hand over my life's work like it was a set of office keys. I smiled. I'm unable to do that. Marcus's expression shifted from bored to irritated. Excuse me. I said I'm unable to do that. I kept my voice pleasant, professional. The same tone I'd used to close $100 million deals. Those contracts are with me personally, not the company. Jennifer's face went pale. Marcus's turned red. That's not possible, he sputtered. You're an employee. Everything you do belongs to Meridian Solutions. I opened my briefcase, Italian leather, a gift from a Saudi prince whose company I'd saved in 2019, and pulled out a folder. 23 contracts. Every platinum-level client we had. This is impossible, Marcus repeated, but his voice had lost its certainty. I'm afraid it's very possible, I said, sliding the folder across the table. You see, when I negotiate with clients, particularly our most valuable ones, I don't just focus on the business terms. I focus on relationships, trust, personal accountability, and every single one of these contracts includes a very specific clause. Marcus grabbed the folder, his Rolex catalog forgotten. His eyes scanned the first page, then the second. His jaw clenched. Client hereby enters into agreement with Sophia Rivera personally, with services to be rendered through Meridian Solutions as administrative platform of convenience, he read aloud. In the event, Ms. Rivera's relationship with Meridian Solutions terminates for any reason, Client retains exclusive right to determine continuation of services and selection of service provider. That's illegal, he hissed. Actually, it's not, I replied calmly. Your father's lawyers reviewed every one of those contracts. They approved them. Because back when your father was running things, he understood something you clearly don't. In this business, relationships aren't company assets. They're personal. And the clients don't pay for a brand name. They pay for me. Where are you watching from, and what time is it there? Drop it in the comments. And if you're starting to think maybe I'm the one in the wrong here, there's still time to click away. But something tells me you want to see how deep this goes. The next 30 minutes were spectacular. Marcus called his lawyers. His lawyers called their lawyers. Someone tried to conference in his father, who was supposedly retired in Boca Raton, but apparently still made all the real decisions. I sat down, without being invited, and waited. This is blackmail, Marcus finally said. No, I corrected. Blackmail would be if I threatened to take the clients unless you gave me something. I'm not threatening anything. I'm simply informing you of the legal reality. As of 5 p.m. today, I'm no longer employed by Meridian Solutions. As of 5:01 p.m., I become an independent consultant. And as of 5:02 p.m., I'll be reaching out to each of these 23 clients to ask them a simple question. Do you want to continue working with me, or would you prefer to work with whoever Meridian assigns to replace me? You can't do this, Jennifer whispered. Sophia, this will destroy the company. I turned to her, and for the first time, I let some of my anger show. Jennifer, do you know how many times I asked for a raise in the last 10 years? 7. Do you know how many times I got one? 0. Do you know how many junior executives, all men, coincidentally, were hired above me, despite having a quarter of my experience and a tenth of my results? 4. Do you know how many times I was promised a partnership track, only to have it delayed for budget reasons, while Marcus's frat brothers got signing bonuses? I stood up, gathering my briefcase. I didn't destroy this company, Jennifer. I built it. And when it was time to show loyalty in return, they gave me 48 weeks, severance, and a 3 p.m. termination so they could make a tea time. Marcus stood too, his face now purple. If you walk out that door with those clients, I will bury you in lawsuits. I will make sure you never work in this industry again. I paused at the door. Marcus, let me tell you something your father understood but never taught you. You can't sue your way into respect. You can't inherit expertise. And you certainly can't buy the relationships I've spent 2 decades building. Those clients, I was at their children's weddings. I negotiated their parents' retirement deals. I flew to Tokyo 3 times in 1 month to save the Nakamoto account when your father was too busy golfing with his mistress. I pulled out my phone and showed him the screen. 17 missed calls, 12 text messages, all from clients who'd apparently already heard about my termination. They're not waiting until 5:02 p.m., Marcus. They're calling me right now. And every single one of them is asking the same question. Where are you going? Because that's where we're going too. The following week was chaos. Marcus did sue. A massive lawsuit alleging breach of fiduciary duty, theft of trade secrets, and about 17 other things his lawyers could think of. The legal papers were delivered to my house by a process server who looked embarrassed. But here, what Marcus didn't anticipate, discovery. See, when you file a lawsuit, the other side gets to request documents. Lots of documents. And I'd been keeping very detailed records for 3 years, ever since Marcus's father had first mentioned selling the company, and I'd started to worry about my future. Emails showing gender discrimination in salary decisions. Performance, reviews proving I'd exceeded every metric while being denied advancement. Text messages between Marcus and his friends discussing how they'd clean house of the old guard once the acquisition went through. And my personal favorite, an internal memo from Marcus himself, written 2 months before my termination, explicitly stating his plan to fire me and absorb my client relationships to avoid paying me what I was worth. His lawyers withdrew the suit within 10 days. But by then, 21 of my 23 clients had already signed new contracts with me, at my new independent consultancy. Meridian Solutions, stock price, dropped 37% in 2 weeks. Okay, let's check in. Team Sophia or Team Marcus? If you think I went too far, you know what to do, click away. If you think I was justified but you're worried about what comes next, well, maybe you should stick around. Because Marcus made one more mistake. A big one. 3 months after my termination, I was working from a home office that had better coffee than the corporate headquarters ever did. My revenue was up. My stress was down. And my daughter, who was in her final year of law school, had stopped asking me why I let people treat me like I was disposable. Then Marcus called. Sophia, we need to talk. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won. I'm listening. The board is concerned. The clients are unhappy. Revenue is down 40% quarter over quarter. My father is threatening to come out of retirement and reverse the acquisition. Sounds challenging, I said neutrally. I want to hire you back. Name your price. I let the silence stretch. Through the window, I could see my garden, something I'd never had time to enjoy in 24 years of corporate servitude. No. I'm sorry. I said no, Marcus. I don't want to come back. But the clients are very happy with my services, for significantly lower fees than Meridian was charging them, I might add. Turns out, without your overhead and your yacht payments and your Rolex collection to fund, I can deliver better value and still make 3 times what you were paying me. His breathing got heavy. This is personal for you, isn't it? Some kind of revenge fantasy. I leaned back in my chair. You know what's funny, Marcus? I didn't plan this as revenge. 3 years ago, when I restructured these contracts, I did it as insurance, protection, because I'd watched too many talented people get pushed out with nothing. I'd seen too many loyal employees sacrificed for quarterly earnings reports. Then why? But when you sat there, scrolling through your Rolex catalog while HR read my termination, when you couldn't even pretend to care about 24 years of service, yeah, then it became personal. I hung up. He called back. I didn't answer. He emailed. I deleted it. He sent Jennifer to my house. I didn't let her in. 6 months post-termination, something interesting happened. 3 of Meridian's junior executives reached out to me. All women, all brilliant, all underpaid and overlooked. We heard what you did, the first one said. We want to know how. I met them at a coffee shop downtown, showed them my contract templates, explained the legal strategy, taught them everything I'd learned about protecting yourself while building something that couldn't be taken away. But why are you helping us? One asked. Aren't we your competition? I smiled. No, you're my legacy. Because the real revenge isn't taking down one entitled rich boy. It's changing the system that created him. It's making sure the next generation doesn't have to wait 24 years to be valued. Within a year, 12 senior women left Meridian Solutions, all with their client relationships intact, all legally protected, all paid what they were actually worth. Marcus tried to sue again. He lost again. Meridian Solutions was acquired at a steep discount by a private equity firm. Marcus was removed as CEO. Last I heard, he was consulting for his father's other businesses, none of which wanted him in actual leadership. Still with me? Good, because we're almost at the end and I want you to think about something. This isn't just a story about revenge. It's a story about power, who has it, how they use it, and what happens when the powerless refuse to stay that way. Keep watching. The best part is coming. 2 years after my termination, I was invited to speak at a women's business conference. The topic, protecting your value in a changing market. I almost declined. Public speaking wasn't my thing, but my daughter convinced me. Mom, you have to tell this story. Not for you. For everyone who's still sitting in that boardroom, watching their boss scroll through Rolex catalogs, wondering if there's another way. So I went. 300 women in the audience. And at the end, during the Q&A, a young woman in the back raised her hand. Ms. Rivera, don't you feel guilty? You said you didn't plan for revenge, but you must have known those contract clauses would give you leverage. Wasn't that deceptive?" The room went quiet. I thought about it, really thought about it. You know what? I don't feel guilty at all. Because here's the truth they don't teach you in business school. Companies will preach loyalty while planning your replacement. They'll promise partnerships while promoting less qualified people over you. They'll work you 70 hours a week and then act surprised when you expect something in return. I leaned into the microphone. I didn't deceive anyone. I protected myself. And if that makes me the villain in Marcus Wellington's story, good. Because in my story, the one where a woman spent 24 years building something real only to be discarded like office furniture, I'm the hero. And so are you. Every single one of you who refuses to let someone else define your worth. The applause was deafening. 3 years post-termination, my consulting firm had grown to 15 employees, all former Meridian people, all paid fairly, all with equity stakes. We just landed our biggest contract yet, a 10-year deal with a Fortune 100 company. The CEO was a woman who'd heard me speak at that conference. "You know why I hired you," she said during the contract signing. "Because you understand something most consultants don't. Business isn't just about transactions. It's about relationships, trust, mutual respect, and knowing when to walk away." I signed the contract with a smile. That evening, I got an email from an unexpected source, Marcus Wellington's father. "Ms. Rivera, I'm writing to apologize. My son was wrong to terminate you the way he did. I was wrong to sell him the company without ensuring he understood its most valuable assets, people like you. For what it's worth, I always knew about those contract clauses. I approved them because I trusted you. I knew you. Never abuse that power. I was right about that, but I was wrong about thinking my son would earn the same loyalty I once had. The business world is worse off without people like you in corporate leadership, but perhaps it's better off with people like you showing others there's another way. Respectfully, Marcus Wellington Jr. I read it twice, then I deleted it. Not out of anger, out of closure. Because his apology, while appreciated, couldn't give me back 24 years. Couldn't undo the nights I missed my daughter's recitals for emergency client calls. Couldn't restore the version of myself who believed loyalty was a two-way street. But you know what? I didn't need his apology. I'd already won. Today, 5 years after that termination, I run a multi-million-dollar consulting firm. I mentor women across 3 continents. I teach contract law at my daughter's law school. Yes, she graduated top of her class. And Marcus, last I checked, he was working for his father's holding company in business development, which is rich people speak for. We're letting him sit in an office so he stops embarrassing us. But the story doesn't end there, because revenge, real revenge, isn't a single moment. It's a cascade, a domino effect that keeps revealing new consequences years after you think everything's settled. It was a Tuesday morning when my assistant buzzed my office. "Sophia, there's someone here to see you. No appointment. Says her name is Patricia Wellington." I froze. Marcus, S mother. I'd met her exactly twice in 24 years, both times at company galas where she'd smiled politely and talked about charity work while her husband built empires and her son prepared to demolish them. "Send her in." Patricia Wellington walked into my office wearing Chanel and carrying the kind of quiet authority that comes from 50 years of moving through rooms where everyone wants something from you. She was 72, silver-haired, and had eyes that missed nothing. "Ms. Rivera, thank you for seeing me without notice." "Mrs. Wellington, please sit." She settled into the chair across from my desk, taking in the office, modest compared to Meridian's executive suites, but mine. Every piece of furniture chosen by me. Every piece of art meaningful, not just expensive. "You've done well," she said. "Better than well." "Thank you." "I'm not here to apologize for my son. I assume you've had enough empty apologies." I nodded slowly. "Then why are you here?" Patricia opened her purse and pulled out a leather-bound notebook. old, worn at the edges. This belonged to my mother. She worked as a secretary in the 1960s. Brilliant woman. Could have run any company she touched. But back then, she laughed bitterly. Back then, women like her made coffee and took notes while mediocre men made decisions and took credit. She opened the notebook, showing me pages filled with elegant handwriting. Strategies, business plans, ideas that had clearly been ahead of their time. She kept all her ideas here. Every innovation she suggested to her bosses, most of them implemented without crediting her. Every promotion she was denied. Every condescending comment about knowing her place. Patricia closed the notebook gently. When she died, she left this to me with a note. Don't let them make you small. But I did, Ms. Rivera. I married well, raised children, managed households and charity boards, and told myself that was enough. And then I raised a son who learned all the wrong lessons about power and entitlement and who deserves respect. Mrs. Wellington. Let me finish, please, she leaned forward. You did what my mother never could, what I never could. You didn't just protect yourself, you created a template, a roadmap. Do you know how many women have used your contract structure in the last 4 years? I actually didn't. 73, that we know of. Probably hundreds more we don't. Women in finance, in tech, in consulting, in every industry where talent gets exploited and loyalty runs one direction. You didn't just beat my son. You changed the game. She stood, leaving the notebook on my desk. This is yours now, because my mother would have wanted someone like you to have it. Someone who didn't just survive the system but dismantled it piece by piece. I stared at the notebook, then at her. Why are you really here? Patricia smiled, sad and knowing. Because my son is trying to sue you again. Different lawyers, different angle, something about tortious interference with his business relationships. And I wanted you to know that when his trust fund comes up for review next month, I'll be voting to restrict it. Significantly. You do that to your own son. I do that for my son, because the only thing I can give him now is consequences. The consequences his father and I failed to provide when it mattered. Maybe, eventually, he'll learn what you learned, that respect isn't inherited. It's earned. After she left, I sat alone in my office for 20 minutes, holding a dead woman's notebook full of ideas that had been stolen, minimized, and dismissed. I thought about my own mother, who'd worked 3 jobs to put me through college, who'd told me, get the education I never got, then make them respect it. I'd gotten the education, but respect, that I'd had to take. Marcus's new lawsuit landed on my desk 3 weeks later. 47 pages of legal jargon that boiled down to, she stole my clients by being better at her job than I am. My lawyer read it and laughed. This won't survive a motion to dismiss, but defending it will cost you about $200,000 in legal fees. That's the real strategy, bleed you dry even if he can't win. Then we don't defend it, I said. Excuse me. We countersue. Every instance of gender discrimination I documented. Every illegal business practice I witnessed. Every wage theft, every violation of labor law, every single thing I saw in 24 years that I stayed quiet about because I wanted to keep my job. My lawyer whistled low. That's nuclear. Good. I'm tired of proportional responses to disproportionate attacks. The countersuit was 187 pages. I'd been keeping records even longer than Marcus knew. His lawyers called mine within 48 hours. Can we talk settlement? No, I said when my lawyer relayed the message. Discovery, full discovery. Every email, every text message, every performance review, every salary decision. I want it all public record. Sophia, that's scorched earth. I know, but how many other women are still sitting in that company, wondering if they should stay quiet? How many are watching this lawsuit, hoping someone finally speaks up? I stayed silent for 24 years. I'm done being silent. The case never made it to discovery. Marcus dropped it entirely, with a public statement about focusing on business operations and putting litigation behind us. But the damage was done. 3 business journals picked up the story. One ran a deep investigation into Meridian Solutions' workplace culture. The findings were devastating. Meridian lost 6 more major clients within 2 months. Their bond rating was downgraded, and the private equity firm that had acquired them, they brought in a completely new management team. Marcus was out entirely. Let me ask you something. Do you think I went too far? Do you think there's a point where justified revenge becomes just revenge? Drop a comment, because I struggled with this question every single day of that lawsuit, and I want to know, where would you have drawn the line? 6 months after the lawsuit collapse, I was keynoting a conference in Singapore when I noticed a familiar face in the audience. Jennifer, my former HR friend who'd read my termination notice while avoiding my eyes. After my talk, she approached hesitantly. Sophia, that was powerful, can we talk? We met at a cafe overlooking Marina Bay. Jennifer looked older, tired. The corporate sheen had worn off. I need to tell you something, she said. Something I should have told you 5 years ago. I'm listening. I knew about the termination, I mean. Marcus told me 2 months before it happened. Asked me to start documenting any mistakes you made, building a file to justify firing you for cause. That way, they wouldn't have to pay severance at all. My coffee suddenly tasted bitter, and I couldn't do it, because there were no mistakes. You were perfect, annoyingly perfect. So I told him the file would take time to build, kept stalling, until finally he just went with the standard termination. She looked at me with watery eyes. Those 48 weeks of severance, that was me refusing to fabricate cause. It's not much. It doesn't undo what happened. But I need you to know I tried, in the only way I could without losing my own job. I sat back, processing. Why are you telling me this now? Because I quit, last month. After watching what happened with the lawsuit, reading those articles about the workplace culture, I realized I'd spent 15 years being complicit. Telling myself I was protecting people by staying inside, following the rules, being the reasonable voice in the room. But I wasn't protecting anyone. I was protecting the system. Jennifer pulled out a folder. These are records. Every instance of discrimination, harassment, and illegal retaliation I witnessed or processed in my time at Meridian. Names, dates, documentation. I want to give them to you. Why me? Because you're the only person I trust to use them the right way. Not for personal vendetta, but for actual change. I took the folder. Inside were dozens of stories like mine. Women passed over for promotions. Employees terminated for reporting harassment. Systematic underpayment of minorities. The casual cruelty of a system that valued profit over people. Jennifer, if I use these, your name will come out. You could face legal consequences. She smiled, the first genuine smile I'd seen from her in years. I know, and I'm ready, because my daughter asked me last week what I did for a living, and when I explained HR, she asked if I helped people, and I realized I haven't, not really, not when it mattered. We spent the next 6 months working with a journalist, 3 employment lawyers, and a coalition of former Meridian employees. The resulting investigation was published across 4 major outlets and sparked a federal inquiry into corporate governance practices. Meridian Solutions settled out of court with 63 former employees for a combined $47 million. The company was dissolved entirely within a year. I ran into Marcus exactly once after everything fell apart. It was at O'Hare Airport, of all places. I was coming back from a consulting trip in London. I don't know where he was going. He looked smaller somehow. Not physically, same tall frame, same expensive clothes, but diminished. We made eye contact across the terminal. For a moment, I thought he'd pretend not to see me, but then he walked over. Sophia. Marcus. An awkward pause. Around us, travelers rushed to gates. Oblivious to the 5 years of warfare, standing in the middle of Concourse C. I read about your firm, the growth, impressive. Thank you. And the Meridian settlement, that was good, for the employees, I mean. I waited. Where was this going? Look, I'm not going to pretend we're friends, or that I didn't earn everything that happened, But I wanted to say, what you built, the way you protected those contracts, the template you created. My father was right. You understood the business better than I ever did. Marcus, if you're looking for absolution. I'm not. I'm looking to understand. How did you do it? Not the legal strategy. I've read those contracts 100 times. But how did you know? 3 years before I even took over, you were already protecting yourself. How did you see it coming? I thought about lying, about claiming some brilliant foresight or strategic genius. But the truth was simpler and sadder. Because it always happens, Marcus, to women like me. We build, we perform, we exceed every expectation. And then someone like you shows up, someone who inherited opportunity instead of earning it, and decides we're disposable. I didn't have special insight. I just paid attention to history. He nodded slowly. My mother said something similar before she cut my trust fund. She did that to teach you, not punish you. Maybe doesn't feel like teaching. He paused. I'm working now, real work, at a startup. No family connections, no safety net. I'm the VP of operations and I'm terrible at it. But I'm learning. Finally learning what it's like when your job performance actually matters. Good, I said, and I meant it. Do you hate me, still? I considered the question honestly. Did I? Once, absolutely. When I was sitting in that boardroom, watching him scroll through Rolexes while my career ended. When I was lying awake at 3 a.m., wondering if I'd made a mistake leaving corporate stability for the uncertainty of independence. But now, no, I said finally. I don't hate you. I don't think about you enough to hate you. You were an obstacle I overcame, that's all. Something flickered across his face, relief, disappointment, hard to tell. That's fair, more than fair. He shifted his briefcase. My gate's boarding, but Sophia, thank you. For what? For not backing down, for showing me what actual competence looks like, and for giving me something I never had, real consequences. He walked away, just another businessman in an airport, no longer the villain of my story. Just a man who'd learned an expensive lesson about respecting people who know more than you do. Year 5 brought something I never expected. Academia came calling. 3 universities wanted me to develop curricula around ethical business practices and self-advocacy in corporate environments. I chose Northwestern, my daughter's law school, and built a course called Power, Loyalty, and Professional Self-Defense. The first class had 83 students. 71 were women. On the first day, I put the Meridian story on the screen. The whole thing, including the contracts, the termination, the lawsuits, everything. This, I said, is not a case study in revenge. It's a case study in preparation, because the question isn't whether you'll face a Marcus Wellington in your career. The question is, will you be ready when you do? One student raised her hand. But isn't this just paranoid? Planning for betrayal before it happens? No, I said. It's realistic, and there's a difference. Paranoia is seeing threats that don't exist. Realism is acknowledging that threats do exist and preparing accordingly. You can hope for the best while planning for the worst. That's not cynicism. That's wisdom. Another hand. But doesn't this approach poison relationships? How can you build trust if you're always protecting yourself? Great question. And here's my answer. Real trust isn't about leaving yourself vulnerable. It's about knowing you could protect yourself if needed, but choosing not to because the other person has earned that choice. When I structured those contracts, I wasn't betraying Meridian. I was giving them a choice. Treat me well and the protections never matter. Treat me badly and I'm prepared. They chose badly. The class became the most popular elective in the business school. Students called it the Sophia class. I called it overdue. Last month, something extraordinary happened. A young woman named Sarah reached out through my firm's website. 26 years old, brilliant software engineer, working at a major tech company. She'd been there 4 years, built their entire customer data platform, and just found out they were planning to terminate her and claim ownership of code she'd developed on her own time. I read about what you did at Meridian, she wrote. I need help. Can you teach me? We met over video call. I I looked at her contracts, her intellectual property agreements, her situation. "You're already in better shape than you think," I told her. "But here's what we're going to do." 3 weeks later, Sarah walked into her termination meeting with documentation proving her code was developed independently, contracts that specified personal ownership, and a lawyer on standby. Her company backed down immediately and offered her a new contract, triple her previous salary, VP title, equity stake. She called me afterward, crying. "How did you stay calm? I was shaking the entire time." "You don't stay calm," I told her. "You just don't let them see you shake. There's a difference." "What do I owe you?" "For the advice, the lawyer referral, everything." "Pay it forward. When another young woman reaches out in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, help her. That's the fee." Today, I have 43 Sarah stories. 43 women who reached out, learned to protect themselves, and changed their professional trajectories. Some went independent. Some negotiated better deals. Some just learned to recognize their own value. Each one emails me on the anniversary of their Sophia moment, the day they stood up for themselves. I keep every email in a folder labeled Legacy. Because that's the thing about revenge Marcus never understood. The best kind doesn't end with your enemy's downfall. It ends with your enemy becoming irrelevant while you build something that outlasts both of you. But here's the thing about revenge. The best kind isn't about destroying your enemy. It's about building something so successful, so undeniable, that their attempt to diminish you becomes the biggest mistake of their career. They terminated me on the spot. I terminated their entire business model. And then I taught hundreds of others to do the same. So where are you watching from? What time is it there? Drop it in the comments. I love seeing how far these stories travel. And now for the big question. What are the 3 major lessons you learned from this story? Really think about it. Not just the surface-level stuff. What are the 3 things you're taking into your own life, your own career, your own fight against people who treat you like you're disposable? Comment below with your 3 lessons. I read every single one. And if you made it this far, if you were Team Sophia the whole way, if you believe that loyalty should run both ways and that protecting yourself isn't the same as being selfish, hit that subscribe button. Because I've got more stories, more strategies, more ways to make sure you never end up in a boardroom watching someone scroll through their Rolex catalog while your life's work gets dismissed as standard restructuring. The game isn't rigged, but the rules were written by people who don't want you to win. Time to rewrite them.